One. Love Talk Radio.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. It is that time again. It is time for House Talk pregame. I am your host, sports mental health and empowerment coach, Dr. Lauren Pitts. As you know, I'm joined every week by my two amazing co-hosts and former HBCU scholar athletes, Jared Johnston and Ronnie Ransom. Our third co-host is my son, Andre Garlick, and we're looking forward to Andre joining us as soon as he can before the end of basketball season. But guess what, folks? Do we have a special treat for you today? I'm so hyped. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I'm not the only girl on the show today. And y'all know I love my men. But it feels really, really good to be able to share the platform today with none other than our special guest, Lieutenant Colonel Carla Debrow, retired, served in the Army with over 20 years of progressive leadership, management, and operations experience. Her last duty station was with the Army Marketing and Research Group in Alexandria, Virginia, where she was the senior program manager and contract officer representative. Prior to her active duty military career, Carla coached collegiate women's basketball. Her career that started as a student assistant at Hampton University, Hampton, underneath the tutelage of James E. Sweat, winning the NCAA Division II National Championship. You just go, woman. You just go. Afterwards, her career carried her to Clark Atlanta, Savannah State, Northeastern Illinois, Chicago State, University of Maine, Bangor, and finally, Manhattanville College in Purchase, New York. She played for the Lady Pirates of Hampton University, that was a dominant force in the CIAA in the mid-'80s, with awesome players like Jackie Dalberry, Anita Cooper, Sheila Hillman, Venice Frazier, and the current CIAA commissioner, Jackie McWilliams. The Hampton teams between 1985 and 1987 won 2 CIAA championships, 2 athletic region finals, and a Final Four appearance. Carla now resides in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and in non-COVID life, referee high school and NCAA Division II and III women's basketball. Wow. Carla, welcome to House Talk pregame. And we're going to hear more from Carla throughout the show. Goodness gracious, I'm so hyped about this conversation, y'all just don't even know. But look, folks, week after week, HT pregame is all about shining light on our HBCUs and providing tons of valuable information to help you and your family, student and professional athletes and their families, and also really shining light and sharing love on the extension of our family at Heritage Sports Radio Network. We want to be instrumental in helping you to take the necessary steps to transform your lives and live the life you love living in more educated and empowered ways. We also want you to remember that you can catch us on HSRN every Saturday at this time, right now, 11 a.m. We compete against ourselves every Saturday, but also on HSRN at 10 p.m., as well as on Sundays at 6 p.m. We have a great show lined up for you today, and Ronnie is going to tell you more about it. Wait a minute, Ronnie. Hold on, baby. Can't hear you. Hold on. Yeah, some technical difficulties. There we go.
Yeah, there's something on my end. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Static. We're going to work that out. Not sure what that is.
I'm going to call back driving.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, well.
We'll keep going, Jared. Yeah.
While Ronnie's getting that fixed, like Dr. Pitts said, we're back again with House Talk pregame. We have a great show today with next week being National Signing Day, which is something a lot of student athletes, the parents, the coaches really look forward to. It's the media fanfare, to say the least. So we're going to discuss National Signing Day, what do athletes and parents need to know about National Signing Day and signing their letter of intent. And then also, what if the athlete doesn't get recruited or doesn't have an offer at that point and is not able to share that excitement on National Signing Day? What can they plan for after that? So we're going to dive into all of that information today and give you guys a rundown of what to expect and how to take your career athletically and academically a step further. We also want to encourage calling and emails however you feel most comfortable doing so. You can dial in at 515-605-9744 or email us at htpregame@gmail.com. We always like to hear from our audience and hear your opinions.
So what we're going to do is just, I believe in keeping our audience. Because I don't know what the technical difficulty is today, Carl, I will tell you, we don't go through this any other time. I'm going to have everybody re-access your speakers on your computers. We're going to, we will do the show through Facebook Live for today because this is a powerful show. We're not going to let this stop us. We're going to keep it moving and we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it live. Can you all hear me? Let's do a sound check. Okay. All right. I have
You hear me now, Dr. Pitts?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
You all can hear me fine?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So folks, we apologize for the technical difficulties that we were having today. Carla, I will tell you, we haven't had technical difficulties in weeks. So what that tells me is there's some force in the universe that just don't want us to have this show today, but folk don't hear what you got to say because you have plenty to offer to this amazing conversation. So we're going to keep going. We want to make sure folk, I apologize if you were planning on calling in live to the show today on Blog Talk, but it is what it is. We're going to keep the show going. We're going to keep this conversation going. We're just waiting for our guest to reconnect the speakers on her device so that we are able to hear her through Facebook Live. And, let's go. So every week, what we do, hold on, I'm getting text messages from folks saying that they can't hear us. All right. I will try to figure it out. Anyway, I'm assuming that people can hear us on Facebook because our sound is streaming live and we are on a mission here. All right. So anywho, yeah, there we are. Hey, I'm gonna share to everybody's page and Ronnie and Jared, y'all get us started. Keep us going while I figure out these technical difficulties. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the torch to you all to just follow suit so that we can get this conversation started while I am trying to get everything going here.
All right, Jared, do you want to shout out our first business of the week?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that. And what we're doing, we used to shout out HBCUs all across the country and shine a light on them because we know that they're underserved and undervalued a lot. So we love to big them up. And now we're transitioning into shouting out businesses or brands of former HBCU alum within the country that are doing good things that we want to also shine light on. Today, I'm doing Tula on TV. That's her Instagram name. Her name is Lauren Poindexter. I actually went to Bowie State with her. And she is somebody who is in the branding business, TV personality business. So I've seen, from afar and a little up close while in school, how she's been building her brand. And I just wanted to shout her out because she's now gotten to the point where she just got casted for USA Network Temptation TV. It's one of those shows on the island. Yeah, so she just got casted for that this week. And it's really a testament to her commitment to her brand and her focus and things like that. And she also was Miss Louisiana in 2018. So I want to shout her out. She's doing good things. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see her on bigger stages as TV personalities, as hosts, and things like that. And Dexter, Tula, Tulaon TV is her Instagram. If anyone wants to follow her, especially young females, African-American females looking for a positive influence.
Awesome. That's awesome right there. Shout out to her. So the business I will be shouting out this week is another one of my teammates from Virginia State University. His name is Shaquille Edwards, and he is the owner and operator of Shaq's Mobile Detailing and Power Washing, LLC. His business is operated in the Central Virginia area, and they take care of all your mobile detailing for your vehicles, whether it's cars, SUVs, 18-wheelers, delivery trucks. No matter if it's got wheels, they can clean it. They also power wash houses, companies, pool areas, anything that can be power washed, they take care of that. Him and his father have been running this business for the last 4 years. As soon as he graduated from Virginia State University, he's also actually a mental health provider in the Central Virginia area as well. And one of the reasons I wanted to shout him out this morning is because, so back in 2019, he started a community event called Shaq and Friends. So the community event is a free community event that is in the Central Virginia area. He normally does it 3 to 4 times a year, where he gives away clothing, school supplies, school materials like laptops, binders, book bags. He just did a coat drive back in December. He did a turkey drive in November. So he's currently raising money for this summer, for a summer event for back to school, where they're raising clothes, furniture for houses, school materials, anything for houses for families who are underserved or underprivileged. So his information, you can find him on Instagram at Shaq, SHAQ_091. On his page, you can find his mobile detailing services, his price list, and as well in his bio, he has the link for his GoFundMe for his community event for this July. So if you get a chance, it's Shaq_091 on Instagram. So check him out.
Nice.
That's nice.
So normally what me and Dr. Pitts do, since we started this show back in September, is what we call Diagnosis of the Week, Mental Health Diagnosis of the Week, where we choose a diagnosis from the DSM-5, and we talk about the symptoms, the signs, the risk factors, and the treatment and resources for these specific diagnoses. So this week, we're going to start switching it up a little bit. As opposed to just talking about one mental health diagnosis, what we're going to do is we're going to start giving out mental health tips and solutions for various mental health diagnoses out there. So I'm going to start it off by this week, I'll be focusing on social anxiety disorder. Real quick, social anxiety disorder is a persistent fear of one or more social or performance situations that is out of proportion to the actual threat posed. When people think of social anxiety, they think of somebody who is afraid to talk in public, afraid to go outside, afraid to be around large crowds and groups of people they're not familiar with and things like that. And while that can be true, the difference between this is there's a persistent fear of the threat of something going wrong. Typically overthinking, thinking somebody's going to judge them, or having a perfectionist mindset. So some things that social anxiety can look like I said, is you can have physical symptoms such as nausea or headaches, overthinking something that you said earlier in a conversation, hiding your true self, or what I like to call putting on a poker face around certain people or in certain social environments so you can get through it, avoiding asking for help. So the fear of asking somebody for help or assistance, whether it's on a project or school project or a business plan or something like that, and also canceling plans. So if you or somebody who, has somebody ask you, you want to go out to dinner or, go grab drinks, and you say, yeah. And then 5 minutes before you're supposed to leave the house, you come up with an excuse to cancel those plans just to avoid having that anxiety of being out. So what are some things you can do to tackle social anxiety? First and foremost, like me and Dr. Pitts always say, please, if this is something that you've been struggling with persistently, please go talk to a therapist or a mental health professional. Congratulate yourself. So in events where you do go out in public or you do hang around friends or people you're not familiar with, always congratulate yourself. Always give praise to yourself for doing that because you know how hard it was for you to get to that point. Stop striving for perfectionism. You know, nobody's perfect. And as cliche as that sounds, that is absolutely true. Nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. People say things they may not mean to say. So don't hold yourself to a perfectionist standard because you will never achieve it. Journaling is always a great way to get those anxious thoughts out. One thing I like to tell people, if you do choose to do journaling, one of the things I like to do, like when you write it out in the journal, whatever that issue is or that problem that's bothering you, once you write it into that journal and you close that book, leave that issue there. Don't let it leak out them pages, leave it in there. And also set goals, like I said. So, you know, on top of congratulating yourself when you actually do something socially, you know, set goals, whether it's, you know, I'm going to go out once a month. And once I accomplish that, going out 2 times a month, having friends over to the house, going to a new restaurant where you don't know nobody, going to the movies by yourself, things like that. Set small goals. And as you accomplish those goals, you know, you can continue to achieve them. Some positive affirmations for social anxiety. You can repeat these to yourself in a mirror or just repeat them to yourself before a social event, or if you feel like your anxiety is about to be triggered. I'm free to focus on things other than myself. People are not waiting for me to make a mistake. I'm comfortable talking to people I don't know, and I welcome new social situations in my life. And the one last thing I want to talk about social anxiety is, you know, a lot of the things that we do to avoid social situations can actually be used for positive things and can be positive traits. I'm going to list off some of these traits of social anxiety and how they can be turned around for positive use. So most people with social anxiety are very empathetic and understanding. They're very cautious thinkers and are very good at problem solving. They're very high achieving and hardworking. They can be creative, detail oriented, smart, organized, and very punctual. So a lot of the things we do when we feel that social anxiety to get us out of situations or come up with this creative story or this creative lie to get us out of these situations can be used for positive things as well. Not only to tackle the social anxiety, but to also tackle other things in our life, whether it's a business plan that you're worried about, struggling in school, struggling on the football field, or any sporting event. So these traits that we think are negative for social anxiety can be turned around for positive traits. So if you or you know somebody who's struggling with social anxiety, like I said, please seek out a mental health professional and always have a support system with you on this journey. Back to you, Dr. Pitts.
So the tip that I want to make our listeners aware of is the importance of nurturing your relationships. You know, one of the things that as a mental health professional that is at the root of my work is understanding the systemic influences of things that are going on in people's lives, because we don't live in this world by ourselves. We're not individuals that are just existing, right? We know that we know that we know that everything that's going on around us, whether it be in our homes or in the communities, has the ability to influence us. Well, what are we doing in regards to those influences? You know, we've all probably heard it said that it's not what happens to you in life that dictates your success or failure. It's your response to it. And I know that, you know, because we're all fallible, right? That at some point in time in each of our lives, we've reacted to someone that had our code, that took a sledgehammer and banged on all of our numbers and made us forget, you know, our Christian foundation and everything that we were taught that is right in the universe. And we went left and gave it to them with both barrels. My fiance says to me all the time, babe, I need you to put the guns in the holster. Just like blow them off, put them away. What is going on right now? Well, that comes down to how are we engaging with other people? And in that, it is so very important to nurture those relationships. Well, Dr. Pitts, how can we do that? We can do that by really, truly valuing and cultivating the relationships in which we can be our imperfect selves, but we can also be loved unconditionally. You all have heard me say over and over and over again that my relationship with my fiance by far is the healthiest relationship that I've ever been in my life. And a big part of that is because he can be authentically who he is, and I can be authentically who I am with my crazy self. And he doesn't judge me, he doesn't criticize me. He embraces me from that place of love and common humanity that is what I need. And quite frankly, it's what all of us need. The other point that I want to note within the context of nurturing our relationships, particularly in this COVID laden world that we're living in, it's very important to stay connected. And we know that COVID-19 has created this opportunity or these opportunities for us to get really innovative in how we stay connected. But isolation can be very, very dangerous to one's mental health. So we want to encourage you to stay connected and to remember that it takes effort to connect with people amidst a busy life, amidst a global pandemic, but we have to be deliberate and intentional about taking time to see people how we can, whether it's virtual family get-togethers or social distancing in get-togethers. But doing that, sending a thoughtful text is beneficial in the long run. I am a firm believer that we have a responsibility to give people their roses while they can smell them. And being able to do that effectively, being able to do that deliberately and intentionally will prove paramount to helping individuals to navigate their lives and to really help them, if you will, to stay of sound mind and body. So that's my mental health tip for the week. You know, we there's so much stuff going on in the world today. I swear I haven't watched the news since last week when with Hank Aaron's passing because it was getting on my daggone nerves. I was like, I need a news break. I need a news break. I just need some breathing space. But I think that it's imperative that that we acknowledge the loss of Cicely Tyson. What an icon. Oh my goodness. What a phenomenal, phenomenal woman of color that in some way, shape, form, or fashion has impacted each of our lives. And quite frankly, she paved the way. She paved the way for so many young women and men of color who want to be extraordinary citizens, who want to pursue careers, you know, in theater, in the creative arts, you know. I mean, just an extraordinary, extraordinary woman that truly embodies what greatness and excellence is really all about. The other thing that I wanted to note, and we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about it, is a lawsuit that was filed by HBCU athletes who are fighting what is called NCAA systemic racism. And I'm going to read you the highlights from a segment from that lawsuit. It says the disparities between sports programs such as Alabama and Ohio State, which played in the January 11th national title game, and historically Black colleges and universities are the basis of a lawsuit filed on behalf of HBCU athletes. He, in the picture they show, it's wide receiver Devonta Smith from Alabama. He had caught a 42-yard touchdown as Ohio State linebacker Tuff Borland chased him during the championship game at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. The Black athletes launched that legal lawsuit because of what they're referring to as chronic bias by the NCAA. And with each of you being scholar athletes, can you speak to that a little bit for our audience and share your take on it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think it's a good thing? What are your thoughts on it? Can we start with Carla?
Yeah, I read a little bit of the article.
Mhm.
But I don't know, the question that came to my mind,
Mhm.
which may not be a popular question, is why. I understand the historical value of the historical Black colleges is to offer opportunities to our student and our student athletes.
Mhm.
You know, why is the academic disparity so wide?
Mhm.
Is that an NCA issue or is it a community issue?
Mhm.
Um, you know, I know there's been a push over the last 15 years for everyone to go to college,
Mhm.
but not everybody is meant for college. And quite frankly, a carpenter makes a whole lot more money than someone with a BA degree. So,
Real talk.
I guess my mind doesn't go automatically to the systemic racism. My
Mhm.
mind goes to the why.
Mhm.
I was the coach at Savannah State
Mhm.
for 2 years, the head coach. So I
Mhm.
know that the academic environment. So once a kid go to, why is it that our kids, once they get to college, why aren't they able or why do they not finish? So is
Mhm.
that an NCA issue or
Mhm.
is that, is that
Bigger issue.
yeah, is that a us problem?
Yeah.
A lack of guidance, maybe, why they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
finish. I mean, that guidance can be back home. It can be a lack of guidance on the campus. I think it kind of goes back to having counselors in place that are really there for the student, or if there is a counselor that's really there for the student and pro student graduation, are the student athletes taking advantage of them or not? Do they think that it's not cool to, take advantage, which sometimes they don't. I think I agree with Carla as well. I think it goes back to the house. But as far as the difference between HBCU athletes, Black athletes, and NCAA athletes and postseason and things like that, I think, of course, there's some, we already know they don't want HBCUs to be the cream of the crop. They don't want you to be in a postseason play. That's more money that you're going to get for the school. But I think that is going to end up changing with a lot of the recruits that are attending HBCUs now with Deion Sanders and things like that. I think that's going to bring a lot more attention. You're already seeing the sponsorships coming into these schools and things like that, and they're going to follow the talent. But I mean, as far as the postseason goes, I read about Savannah State and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's, not unexpected because why put a bunch of Black athletes on, postseason where it possibly will be televised national TV and they come from HBCU? They'll be cool with it if it's a lot of Black athletes at a PWI because that's putting money in the PWI's pockets, but they're not going to give you a win-win situation, I believe. That's my take on that.
I also kind of agree with some of Miss Carla's viewpoints and perspective on it. And when I was reading the article about it, one of the things I saw was that, and I know this to be true as well because I saw this at Virginia State. I think one of the biggest issues for HBCUs is the retention rate of freshman students going from freshman to sophomore year. And also, I can't speak for every HBCU, but the two HBCU, well, the couple HBCUs that are in Virginia, more specifically Virginia State and Norfolk State. When I was in high school, the joke used to be, well, if you can't get into one of the bigger schools, you can get into Virginia State or Norfolk State. And if you can't get into one of those two schools, you shouldn't even apply to college at all because they take anybody.
Wow.
Right.
I heard that about Norfolk State.
Well, that was Savannah State too. It's in their charter.
And so I think that might be one of the biggest issues right there is the fact that, a lot of the HBCUs see that, even if they had high standards, like Hampton University has, not high, very credible standards to get into their program. That's not an easy school to get into. But not every HBCU is like that, and Hampton, can benefit because they're a private school and generate their own money and things like that. Whereas Virginia State and Norfolk State, they're public schools. So if they're not getting kids into campus, the state's looking like, well, you're not meeting academic goals. You're not even keeping kids here. So why are we going to keep funding this school if you can't even keep kids here to begin with? So while I do think that maybe the academic program standards for the NCAA might be too broad and too blanket to just cover every single school, I do think this is more of a community issue, like Carla said, and a school to school issue. And even at, in the HBCUs that are at the Division I level, outside of basketball, where, the basketball teams like Norfolk State a couple years ago had made an upset in the NCAA tournament. Hampton's been there and made an upset. There was another HBCU that I can't think of. On the football side, most of those HBCUs are Division I AA, meaning they're the FCS division. And I know they had a Celebration Bowl where the top two HBCUs for Division I AA got to play in a Celebration Bowl that was nationally broadcast on ESPN. But the chances of them actually getting notoriety or actually making it in the actual FCS tournament, a lot of the time, like A&T opted not to go into the tournament because they knew they could get more revenue and money from the Celebration Bowl game. So, and I've always been an advocate of, I think, HBCUs should have their own style of tournament for football. If the big tournaments don't want to welcome us in, we can have our own tournament and find a way to broadcast that to build revenue for the HBCUs. So we'll see how the lawsuit goes. I think this is more of a school issue than an NCAA issue. But, if the NCAA knows that these HBCUs are just trying to get people in the door and, we'll figure it out then, I think there should be maybe, more understanding of that as opposed to, how PWIs get kids into school.
But I think like when we talk about Norfolk State, I know that's been a lot of the talk. Like anybody can get into Norfolk State with like a 1.4 GPA. I've heard of people like that. Yeah, but
yeah, literally,
you can't really pin that on a HBCU and say, oh, HBCUs are slacking and things like that. Because if you look at West Virginia, that school you can get in with a very low GPA, and that's a PWI major school.
Absolutely.
In football and basketball. So I think people just shouldn't look at it as a point of, oh, HBCUs are lacking in that field. It's a widespread thing, but I mean, we're focused on the HBCU aspect.
Well, I mean, it's beneficial to all universities to expand their student population because they get more federal money, and that in itself that's a whole nother issue. That's that's a whole nother issue. But the thing is, we transform from a space where we actually have vocational schools, in high schools. So the push to have everybody doesn't need to go to college, period. I mean, it's not necessary. I mean, it's not even necessary to make a good living, no matter what they say. But is necessary to be educated, to have a skill.
Right.
So what other places? So no one ever asks, well, these colleges get a lot of federal money. Why does it cost so much to go to college? If they're getting guaranteed, that's why it's guaranteed money. They do what they do. But the vocational education in this country needs to be elevated. Because I know when I was in high school, you had a group of students that actually worked. They would go to school half a day and go work the next day, or go to a VOTEC half a day.
We had that as well at school. Yep.
Right. So why push everybody to the college?
Yeah, and I think, like I mentioned before, I think Bowie State is going in that direction because they are going to be putting up a entrepreneurial building dedicated to students.
I heard about that.
Enhancing the entrepreneurial opportunities and housing them there. So I think that's, the new wave that you're seeing. I know in Atlanta, the article where a lot of money was put into building some type of campus dedicated to, I think, Clark Atlanta, Spelman and them, that's going to be teaching students. I believe it has something to do with science, but you can see people are starting to put money into different avenues instead of the traditional learning. And I think that'll be good as we talk about, and we focus on athletes. I think that'll really help them as far as getting them engaged in school instead of just going and sitting in an hour, 20-minute class, and hearing a lecture. I think it'll do better.
And think about the confidence, think about the confidence building if you actually stress people doing what they love. The athlete gets a bad rep for being the dumb jock. And I always cringe when I heard that, because you cannot really be an athlete and be dumb. Not really. And I think the dumb jock is the so-called dumb jock is the jock that the athlete that found something that he or she loved, but don't want to and does very well, but don't want to really venture out to to take the risk of being bad at something. So they don't do that. That's what the dumb jock comes from, in my opinion. That's the person who don't want to fail at something else, but found something that he or she really knows how to do and is good at it. You can't think about an offensive guard or a center.
He's talking to Ronnie. He's talking to him.
Right. Yeah,
Smartest one on the field.
They have to be smart. Those guys have to be smart. It's just like the military. They say the infantry soldier is dumb. Infantry soldier is not dumb, because you can't survive on the battlefield being dumb. It is instinctual.
I agree with that, Ms. Carla. I do think there needs to be more of an emphasis on vocational jobs and things. I was actually reading an article yesterday where they said they're estimating by, I think, 2040, 49 million like manufacturing jobs and what we call blue collar jobs will be, replaced by technology by 2040. That's 49 million people who will be out of a job, so and I do think we're starting to see this shift to where, it's one thing to have a certain skill, but you have to have transferable skills. It's one thing to be good with your hands and put this door on a car, but can you build stuff? Can you be a carpenter and build more stuff outside of just doing one specific job? And I think, we start to see this shift where you have the baby boomer generation where they were brought up on, you go to high school, graduate, go to college, get a job, boom, you're there 40 years, retire, call it a life. Now we're starting to see that model doesn't work necessarily in our generation, where you can just go to high school, go to college, you're going to find a job, start a career, boom, you're good. A lot of kids are graduating with $100,000 worth of debt, and the job they went to school for is only paying them, $15, $20 an hour. That's not enough.
Right.
So I think, these schools starting these entrepreneurial programs, putting more emphasis in STEM programs and vocational programs. We need more of that, especially at HBCUs. And I think HBCUs could really benefit from leading that, new wave of bringing that emphasis onto what I call jobs that never go away. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Well, but there's a lifelong learning part of what you're talking about sustainable skills. The thought that once you get your education, that's it. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of people asking me how I went from being a chef and a restaurant general manager and a food service director. It's like literally the first 3/4 of my career was spent in hotels and restaurants. But what I've explained to people, as I was transitioning into education and, continue that transition into behavioral mental health, is that those foundational skills, those jobs that never go away, right? Because people are going to always eat. The soft skills and the hard skills that I learned in the food service and hospitality industry are transferable over into education and into behavioral mental health. Why? Because it's all about people skills. It's all about people. People are like, well, I don't see how could you go from being a chef? Let me tell you something. Look here. The patience that is required to run the front and back of the house and feed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 people who 25% of them are drunk. Are you kidding me right now?
Talk about conflict management.
Oh my goodness. Like the skill set that is required. And you all know I've shared previously on shows, I was the director of catering at FAMU for 3 years. And I kid you not, I look back in retrospect and was like, you know what, Lauren, they gave you the answers to the test and you were naive. You was green as all outdoors when the secretary to the president of the university said, Miss Pitts, have you ever worked at an HBCU before? No, honey, with her southern drawl. Baby,
Right.
it's a whole different culture here that
Yeah,
you're
it
going to
is.
need to adjust to with your sedity northern self. Jesus! Can I just tell you? I was in tears. I kid y'all not. The first 3 months that I worked at FAM, I cried every single solitary day out of the frustration that came with, because I knew catering. I knew catering in my sleep, but trying to learn the HBCU culture from that side of the experience, from leadership side of the experience, and not as a student. Look at here, if you book an event that's scheduled to start at 6 o'clock, you know that really mean at 9. If you're scheduling an event that's supposed to get over at 4, you know that really means 7. And I'm like, are y'all serious right now? Yeah, it's a different culture. It was a different experience. But what it taught me is a level of resilience, a level of compassion and understanding and humanity that I put in place literally every minute of every day as I'm managing this culturally diverse caseload with this diversity of mental illness and systemic family issues and lack of education and not too much education, but folks that are like, yeah, I know you a doctor, but you a Black one, so you can't tell me nothing. Those types of conversations, you know what I mean? So I say all that to say that it's all very relevant. I have another question for each of you. So as we're talking about National Signing Day and getting into these discussions about, what parents need to know and not know about signing and letters of intent and if an athlete gets recruited and if they don't and what have you. Miss Carla, you're basketball. These gentlemen are football. Can you all educate Dr. Pitts and our audience about those differences and those what's the word I'm looking for? The similarities, the differences and the similarities as to what those things look like from basketball to football. Because what we've talked about on previous shows too is how the difference between how basketball programs are viewed on campus versus football and revenue generation and all of that stuff. Can y'all speak to that?
Well, I don't know one thing. I know that when you're talking about National Signing Day, majority of people, their attention goes strictly to football. Like that's the major National Signing Day. It's a fanfare. People literally take off work to watch National Signing Day, to watch these kids sign, especially if you're a diehard fan and you're talking about a major school and you're talking about Power 5 schools, Georgia, Texas. You have diehard fans take off work to sit and watch, and you have the guys on TV taking their hats off and things like that. So football gets all the attention for the most part. I honestly can't say that I've ever turned the TV on the basketball National Signing Day for high school, and it's been as much attention towards it. But it's something that's huge. I think it's a place, it's a time of the year that's definitely great for a lot of student athletes, but then you have a lot of student athletes who are in, the shadows and they're not signing and they have to deal with that, mentally, emotionally. They may feel that they failed, they haven't achieved their goal. So I think it's a great day, but it's also a day where there's a lot of kids who don't feel good about themselves. And then there's a lot of kids that don't sign on National Signing Day and they go on to college and become some of the best players in college football. So I think it's a great day, but I think we still need to put focus on the student athlete mentally, as we put a lot of emphasis on this show. But that's my take on it. I don't know too much about basketball as far as National Signing Day, but maybe you guys, or maybe Miss Carla, know some info
Well,
on it.
it's been, I think the last time I really had the Manhattanville College was a Division III school. So
Mhm.
it didn't really matter. No scholarships. University of Maine. Yeah, we had, we had set up that day where we received the contracts. But back, I don't remember it being that big back
Mhm.
then. That National Signing Day just meant that the kids that said that they committed to your school, they
Mhm.
were allowed to sign. I really don't, and that was in 2000, and that was shoot, that was a long time ago, I don't believe there was a big focus on that.
So
So
no,
I
no parades and pink poodles.
no parades. It was just a day that we were, as a staff, we were relieved. We got the kids in for the next year, and then now we can plan on the summer season to kind of start the next recruiting year.
Mhm.
Miss
And
Carla, I
That's
got
what I
to before Ronnie jumps in. So one of the things that we've talked about on previous shows is this difference, in the campus culture between football and basketball programs. Can you just speak to that real quick? Like, what is that? Why is it all revenue based, or and oh, by the
it
way, being a woman's coach, can you just speak to that real quick?
Well, you know what? I will go back to University of Maine again.
Mhm.
Now, University of Maine really gave me hope for women's basketball and what it could look like,
Mhm.
because in Maine is a strange place. Strange good. They really valued and loved their girls' high school basketball. And the head coach at University of Maine at that time was Joanne P. Macaulay, who was the just retired from Duke.
Mhm.
Um, her salary was the baseline for everyone else's salary, to
Oh
include the
wow,
football coach.
Mhm.
wow!
Dang.
Yes,
Who knew?
because yes, I remember having 3,000 people in the stands during a blizzard.
Mhm.
Wow.
So, I honestly think women's basketball can and has a future, but I think the focus has to be, really building the brand, having a coach that can communicate to the community, and recruit well, and having kids that can also relate to the community.
Mhm.
So, but when I was at Hampton, there was something. We went to the Final Four,
Mhm.
and when we came back, we lost miserably. I don't even want to remember that game. But the football team, I think they won the CIAA tournament
Mhm.
or championship, and they got a parade. And we were like,
And a
really?
pink poodle. Do y'all know where that phrase comes from?
Mm-mm.
But
What's that?
And people are like, why does she keep talking about this darn parade and pink poodle? Because Tommy Lee said it in Double Jeopardy with Ashley Judd toward the end of the movie, when he was basically telling her that she was going to be exonerated from all charges and what have you. He was like, we're going to throw you a parade in a pink poodle and give you a pink poodle. And I don't know why that's stuck in what is stuck in my head, but it's just so cute to me. So now I'm like, oh, you're gonna get a parade in a pink poodle. So don't pay me no mind. Y'all know that it's silly. I gotta laugh. It keeps me sane. All right. Thank you, Ms. Carla. Ronnie.
So I'm kind of like how Jared was when I think of National Signing Day. I know when I was in high school, I definitely skipped school that first Wednesday to watch ESPNU, to watch who was signing and stuff. Because when I was in high school, I wanted to see, who the competition was, and how the other linemen and stuff stacked up like that, so I could see where I needed to be. I will say that National Signing Day for a Division I athlete and below is completely different. Division I, of course, gets more of the notoriety, the fame, and stuff like that. And I think one of the biggest differences people don't realize is that Division I schools typically have their recruits picked out 2 years in advance. So
Wow.
yeah, like most Division One, the Power Five schools already have the recruiting board for, now it's starting to creep into freshmen. There was actually a freshman at a high school locally here who just got his first offer from UVA, and he hasn't even stepped on the varsity field yet.
Wow.
His brother actually just signed to go to Ohio State as a running back, so they're projecting that the little brother might be a little bit better than big brother. So we'll see how that goes. That's a lot of pressure for entering freshmen, but he has a good role model to look after. I will say, and to your point, Ms. Carla, I think it varies by state, which schools are football schools and which schools are basketball schools. When we think of the bigger schools, I think of like Kentucky. Kentucky's a basketball school. Here in Virginia, VCU is strictly basketball. They don't even have a football team, so they're all dedicated to basketball. So I think it really depends on that school and program, which sport is emphasized more. But I think, Football National Signing Day, of course, gets a lot of more notoriety. A lot more people like football than necessarily basketball and things like that. But there are differences, and now with the Division One schools, they have 2 signing days now. They have the second Wednesday in November as the early signing period. So those big recruits, the 4- and 5-star recruits who already know they're going to the school they're going to, they can sign in the second Wednesday in November. Now it's like the first Wednesday in February is more for the Division One AA, Division Two schools and stuff like that to get what we consider the leftovers. So the kids who haven't been picked up yet and things like that. And one more point before I pass it back over to you, Dr. Pitts. I think this year is probably one of the most stressful inducing years for high school athletes as far as recruiting goes. I was actually looking at a chart on Max Preps. Out of the 50 states, I think 38 states played their season in the fall, but they played reduced schedules. Of course, the southern states like Texas, Alabama, Florida, they played their whole season. They could care less about COVID down there. So they were going to get their high school seasons in. More schools up north, like Virginia, they're starting their high school football season at the end of February, and they're only playing 6 games. So those kids who didn't get recruited in the fall and were banking on, Division I scholarships or a scholarship in general, I really feel for them because, like I said, Division I programs, they already have their kids who they're going to get made up 2 years in advance. And now that they have this early signing period, if you didn't sign then, the chances of them coming to find you during the spring are slim to none.
Wow.
So I feel like these students and what's going to happen. So, I think National Signing Day needs to be revisited and relooked at for, events like this, and how can kids get a fair chance at getting recruited?
Yeah, what they.
Hey, Ron, I'm sorry.
On how coronavirus has impacted National Signing Day, and they've actually extended for football and basketball student athletes signing in 2020, 2021, and enrolling in the 2021-2022 school year. They've extended it to where the D1 football regular signing period starts February 3rd, 2021, and it ends August 1st, 2021.
Okay. That's good.
Signing period starts on April 14th, 2021, and ends August 1st, 2021. So they've been giving some extensions to the signing day because of coronavirus. But I think another thing with the early signing period, I think it helps the student athletes because there's a documentary called The Cost of Winning about St. Francis Prep in Baltimore. And they have like 4 or 5-star recruits up and down. And one of them had been committed to LSU for over a year. And they pulled his scholarship a week before signing day. And he didn't take any visits to any other school since he's been committed. The high school coaches, they want to build that character and say, if you committed to something, you're going to stick to it. You're not going to be going on visits and pulling your scholarship and going somewhere else. And LSU pulled his offer. And if there was a national, if he had that early signing period, he would have been locked in, So I think it really helps. But I also think National Signing Day, that shows you how much that school really, cared about you. And they didn't even call him and tell him. They found out, outside of, not directly from the source.
Was there any reason as to why his scholarship got pulled?
He had grades, didn't get hurt, nothing. They just pulled a scholarship. He ended up going to Mississippi.
Yeah, that sounds a little suspect to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
he ended
does.
up going to Mississippi State. He was a 4 or 5-star recruit, defensive end, and just pulled a scholarship. And he was hurt because he was looking forward to, getting to school. And he was talking about how it hurt him because he had to go tell his family that he didn't get that scholarship. Now he's thinking, even though you're at that you're that caliber of an athlete, where schools are going to come back, he still was thinking he might not get an offer, he might not go to school. And he was a kid that grew up. And in the documentary, they talk about how I believe 9 of his friends had died, like within a year or something like that. So he's thinking, if I'm not in college and I'm not playing football, I might get caught up in that. So I think like the coaches and these recruiters, they have to really be sincere and care about the athletes, because you're doing more than just taking a scholarship from them. You could be putting them in a bad situation.
Altering the trajectory of their lives. Ms. Carla, you were gonna say something?
Well, I was gonna say, just remember, the coaches are that's their livelihood. So they have missed a summer of recruiting, and also during the season. That's both basketball and football. So the more opportunities that they get to see players, I don't think players, they understand the situation that high school players are going through. So their coaches are hustling for the next recruiting season. But yeah, you got to be you. I think players and coach and parents have to be aware and be discerning of the character of the programs that they're going to,
Yeah.
and of the coaches, because you have coaches that are in it for a different reason. Any coach that's just say that's about winning but not about building that student athlete to adulthood. 'Cause really, I mean, I know it's $1 million business. Actually, NCAA is $1 billion business. But you lose your way as a coach when you think about championships. You really do. So be
That's
mindful.
actually a great segue. I wanted to say first, I don't know what the heck's going on with the technical difficulties today. I just completely shut Blog Talk down for today. I'll figure it out later. But we are live on Facebook, and we always want our viewing and our listening audience to be a part of these very, very powerful discussions, because we talk about it all the time, right? Ignorance is bliss, and some people are blistered. That's a Lauren Pitts one. Some people are stone cold blisters, and people they come into these situations with starry eyes. They're going to the league, and having taught in high school for, goodness gracious, almost 15 years. I mean, there's folk don't know. They don't know all of these intimate details that we're sharing about these processes on this show. So folks, we want to hear from you. We want your comments. We want your questions. You can email us on htpregame@gmail.com. You can type comments in the chat window during the show. Normally you'd be able to call us live during the show on Blog Talk at 515-605-9744. We highly recommend that you go to the App Store and download the Heritage Sports Radio Network app to your phone, so that you can catch us at 11 a.m., 10 p.m. on Saturdays, and 6 p.m. on Sundays on HSRN. These conversations are powerful. They are powerful, powerful, powerful. And I interact with enough people to know that these conversations, this information, this knowledge, which truly is power, it's just not being shared at the level that it should be. And we want you to be a part of these conversations. I think that you all, that the discussion about National Signing Day and athletes being ready, and Jared, the documentary that you were talking about, I think it's a great segue to the overarching theme of today's show, which is we are champions. And I think that championship is not just about winning a trophy. It's not just about getting the title. I believe it's a mindset. I believe that it's a mindset that is designed to serve scholar athletes on and off the field, on and off the court, literally in every aspect of their lives. And I am a firm believer, personally and professionally, that what you feed grows. So if I have to, say it in athletic terms, I believe that what you train, you improve. So I want to ask you all, as coach and as all three of you as former scholar athletes, how can scholar athletes go about achieving their very best? And in that, I'm thinking about the caveat of what you said about, say, for example, the reputation that Norfolk State has. Oh, they accept anybody. That is so offensive to me. That is so offensive to me. But I think that scholar athletes, particularly our high school, audience members, need to understand what it's going to take to be extraordinary. And I'm hoping that each of you can speak to that championship mindset that may perhaps lead to championships with their contribution to championship teams. Ms. Carla, you want to jump?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll say desire, just a simple desire, to want to excel, and then once you have that desire, you speak it. You name exactly which direction you want to go, and then you focus on that. Is desire, is focus, it's self-talk, and you don't have to be 100% better than everybody, but you have to improve yourself. If you just improve yourself 1% each day, 1% each day, you'll find that you'll get exactly what you want. But you have to believe it. Once you have that desire, you have to have the faith that is there, even when you don't see it. Even when, people, you hear that talk around you, you're too small, you're too slow, whatever.
Or as Jordan's coach told him, you just no good.
Right. And you have to visualize yourself being exactly what you want to be, period. And I truly believe that.
For me, and to your point, Carla, I'm glad you said it. One of my coach's favorite sayings used to be, don't try and be 5% better, 10% better, 15% better today. Just be 1% better than you were yesterday. Those 1% add up. And I live by that, not only when I played football, but even, now as a professional in, mental health, I live by that every day, just getting 1% better in all aspects of life because, God willing, I'm going to be here for a while. So, those percentages are going to add up. And then just from an athletic standpoint, some of the things I used to tell myself, and, first and foremost, I hated losing more than I loved winning. I'm a sore loser. I hate losing. I hate everything about losing. I hate.
As Jared says, smiling, didn't they beat y'all?
I was 4-0 versus Bowie State, but great games. Great game. But no, I hated losing more than I love winning. I just hated it. And one of the other things I used to tell myself, it's a Marine term, but they say embrace the suck. Embrace it.
It's a military. It's a military.
It's not just the Marine, it's military period.
So, and what I mean by that is, doing the things that aren't popular, aren't glamorous, aren't fun to do every single day. You have to be consistent with that, because if you're not, then, achieving a championship is one thing, but believing it and knowing that you've put in the work to get there is, I would say, 3/4 of the battle. And if you're not willing to do that when there aren't cameras, when there aren't fans, when there aren't people in your face saying you did a good job and stuff like that, you won't be a champion not only in sports, but in life. You have to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Is that-
nah.
Go ahead, Jared. Chime in first, and then I got a follow-up question for you guys.
I was gonna say, I think, especially we talking about team sports too. I think it really starts in the mind first, but the team, like you got to be able to work together as a team because I've been at Bowie and we've had a lot of talent, but the team couldn't come together to win a game. I mean, there'd be times where we get the schedule and I'm sitting there like, man, we could go 10-0. I always go into every season thinking about that. And then I have teammates that play that are saying, oh, no, we're going to lose this game, and this game. I'm like, so you just automatically saying we're going to lose 4 games. So you have to have a cohesiveness and then you got to have a belief. And mentally, you have to believe, like Carla said, you have to visualize you winning it. So I'm thinking we can win it. A bunch of other guys thinking we can win it. But if you got 2 guys that think you're going to lose, they're going to, seep into the rest of the team. And as you come across struggles, even if you lose a game, they're going to be like, man, he was right. We're not going to win a championship. We're going to lose 5 games. We're going to lose 6 games. So I think you have to really be able to come together as a team if you really want to achieve a championship. And I think that translates off of the field as you go into different settings. If it's corporate America, if it's in business, if you're in the military, a lot of times to be successful, you're going to have to be able to work together as a team. So if you can go ahead and nurture that in college and become a champion in college using the team mindset, once you get out of it, I think you'll continue to go into that championship mindset. So the mind and being able to work together as a unit leads to championships.
Mind over matter is my interpretation of what you said. And so oftentimes I actually just had a conversation with a young lady that I mentored yesterday where, she literally was focusing on everything that could go wrong. And, Ronnie, that we talk about that miracle question, right? If I gave you a magic wand and you could wave it, what would it look like? What would it be like? What would be different? How would you know that things were better? And that was what I answered. Can you tell me what's the exception? Can you tell me one thing that might go right? Okay, now tell me one more. Now tell me one more. Now tell me one more. And tell me one more. And I think about that within the context of being the parent of, a scholar athlete. Andre used to make me nervous when he was playing football and basketball in high school because that determination, that grit that you all talk about, he would play injured and he would push through that pain barrier. I remember he got injured junior year in high school during a basketball game and ended up having to have rotator cuff surgery. Well, anytime you all have an injury, they say this is the window of time that it's going to take you to fully recover and heal. Oh my God, boy, you're killing me. You're about to be paralyzed in your arm because he was like,
suggestion. That's all. It's just a suggestion.
That's what it is. That's what y'all think is scholar athletes and coaches. Because his scholar athlete brain said, nah, I'm going to finish this season. And he literally was back on that court before the doctor had said that he should have been, because he was determined that he was going to play again before the season was over. So when I think about that championship mindset, confidence, the focus, the determination, even, leadership for Jared, you as the quarterback of the team, Miss Carla, you as the coach, what role do these characteristics and also thinking about motivation, intensity, and commitment, right? Can that person that Jared talked about, can that person that comes into the season with a defeatist mindset, how does the coach address that? How do teammates address? How do you as leaders? How do you all address that?
I mean, as a coach, I lean on my captains, right? And it's my team, the players. I want their buy-in. right? I want their buy-in. I'm going to give them an overall foundation. I'm going to give them my expectation,
Mhm.
right? And gonna drive, gonna try my best to put my brain into their brain, right? And to motivate them the best way I can. And then I'm gonna give it over to them
Mm.
Okay.
to motivate each other, right? Because if it's not my team, because if my team, they're gonna run through the plays, they're just gonna go through the motion. But if it's their program, not a team, I always
own it,
believe
you
in a
mean?
program.
If they
Yes,
own it. Okay.
if they own it, if they owned it, they're gonna take pride in it. They're gonna take responsibility about their actions, the product that they put on the court, they're showing. So they hold each other responsible. They hold each other accountable, and that's what I try to work on. That was always my goal.
Jared,
Yeah.
you burning. I see. This is like fire burning in his throat. You got to
Nah,
get it out.
them guys that be talking all that nonsense in the beginning, like in the preseason. I mean, I'm not a coach, I can't speak to it, but me as a quarterback, in my mind, I say we don't want them on the team. Like,
Oh,
for
wow.
what? Like, they're only gonna seep into other people's mindset, and especially if it's somebody that doesn't play, or they think that somebody's ahead of them that should not be ahead of them, they're gonna continue to be negative, and they're just gonna ruin the program. And I've seen it to the point where you have guys on the team that don't buy in, and you have all of this talent, and you can't get above the 500 mark, and then you get
Yeah,
rid of
but
Go ahead.
I got a question for you. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it just so when you have that, who are the captains to hold those players accountable and get rid of those players? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
you're the quarterback.
you can hold them
What do you
accountable.
say?
At the end of the day, you're a grown man, and I'm not about to hold anybody's hand. And if we try enough times and you don't come up to weightlifting, you miss weightlifting, you late to practice. I don't want you on the team. Like, why would I want you on the team? And why would I want to deal with you in any other aspect of life? And there's guys that don't take care of their body, throwing up in a pregame warm up because they don't take care of their body. That shows that you don't care about the team, you don't care about yourself, you don't believe we can win because you're not making the sacrifices. So as a leader, like you said, as Ms. Carla said, going back to the pride. So what I can do, I can talk all I can, but at the end of the day, you got to lead by example. So me showing up in the weight room, at the film, practicing hard, focusing, game week, knowing, okay, we can win this game. And if they see it, it rubs off on them. But if they don't see it, I mean, if the coach doesn't want to get rid of them, they need to sit on the bench and be as far as away from the guys who are really dialed in.
As far
Because
away from me, it's fine. Give him a scrub.
Let's talk about the Buccaneers.
Right, exactly.
Last year, I guarantee the Buccaneers did not have any confidence. Now they got Tom Brady, so they believe in him. Like Ms. Carter said, they bought into Tom Brady. Some guys are not going to buy in, and that's where you see people get released. So I think getting the team to buy in and having pride in themselves and their school too, and the history of their school. And also for me, it was the coaches. Like, if I knew the coaches believed in us, I'm going to fight that much harder on the field for them. And that's where the change happened for Bowie. And now you see Bowie winning the championship every single year. People got weeded out and the right coaches got brought in.
So I got a question for you, and it's I'm taking the focus off the collegiate sports and the high school sports for a minute. It just, as you all were talking, it made me think about all of the coaches that lost their job in the NFL this season. So, if a team is 1-16, is that the coach?
There's a lot of variables to it.
I think
Yeah, especially in professional. Yeah.
I think at the NFL level, that's
players.
Organization.
Let's take Cincinnati and Cleveland, for example. I think that's more of a ownership issue and a culture as a whole, as opposed to just pinpointing on the players and the coaches. I think that comes from at that level. That comes from the very top and what the owner allowed. Let's take your beloved Cowboys, for example.
Oh yes, let's take them.
So You know, and I know you know this, Dr. Pitts, but Thursday was just y'all's 25th year anniversary of the last Super Bowl you all won. And you know, one of the things they were talking about is, you know, the Cowboys, like this past decade, the Cowboys have the most Pro Bowl players. I think they were top 5 for all pro players and things like that. So they have the talent. So is the coaches. Well, they've had coaches in the past before that have gotten them there. And what we see is the issue comes from the ownership.
Jerry
Jones.
Jones won't let coaches do their job. He's got his hands, and I love you, Jerry. And you know I want to work with you.
He's the worst general manager in.
Here, I need him and Steven to come into my office and lay on my couch so that I can do some exploration and help them see why it's so hard for them to release some of that control and actually, because when we look at when we won with Jimmy Johnson was actually allowed to do his job, and look at the results that yielded. You cannot micromanage folks and think that you're going to have the results that you want. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. Okay. Sorry.
And that's where my point was leading to, you know, it's, you know, somebody who and we talk about accountability and self-accountability and things like that. So here you have Jerry Jones, this billionaire owner of, you know, the most popular franchise in all of the world. And so who holds him accountable? If he doesn't hold himself accountable and realize that the only common denominator in the last 25 years of this organization is me. We've changed everything. We've changed the players. We've changed the coaches. We've changed the trainers, the strength coaches, the nutritionists, all that. The only person who remains the same is the owner. So if he's not willing to take accountability, and you also undermine your coaches, where if the players have an issue with the coach, they can just undercut them and go straight to you and you take care of it, you're creating an unstable environment for winning. And that's why in the last 25 years, you've seen they have not been able to get over to that hump and get back to the Super Bowl, because it's a organizational issue, but it comes from the very top. No different than we look at, you know, like we're talking about, you know, coaches last week, you know, communication between athletes and coaches. And like Jared said, if I don't believe in what you're telling me as a coach, you know, will I go out there and do my best ability? Yeah. But am I gonna willing to go out there and make sure you keep your job the next week? I'm gonna make sure I keep my job. But as far as you go, I don't trust you. I don't believe in your message. So I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my position to make sure my spot's taken care of. But as far as you as a coach, if our communication is broken or I don't trust you, then the whole team's gonna fail. And to Jack's point, that's what we suffered with at Virginia State my freshman and sophomore year. Nobody bought into the coach. Nobody believed the coach. The coach would make these, you know, these drastic promises and these expectations and things like that. And he wasn't consistent himself. He was late to meetings himself, or wouldn't show up, or wouldn't communicate and stuff like that. So we didn't care. Now, when our new coach came in our junior year, like I said, what he said, he meant. And we had players like that who came in, you know, like I always like to call them jersey players, those who just want to be on the team to get the jersey, get all the gear and stuff and say, yeah, baby, I play on the football team. I'm third string, but, you know, hey, I can get you to the game for free. And, you know, we can chill afterwards. You don't want those type of players on your team, because the more of those you have and the coach allows it, you won't see a championship. You won't sniff championship. And that coach won't be sniffing his paycheck for much longer either. So, you know, and to answer in so many words to answer the question, it comes from the top, you know.
Yeah, I call it synergy, right? I say 1 + 1 with synergy equals 4.
Attitude reflects leadership. That famous quote from Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have everyone working together, you can really do more than what you might think you can. It's just it builds a powerful energy, a powerful positive energy that pushes you forward. Where you might, you know, in a close game, there's an unexpected steal that thrusts your team to victory, right? Overtime game, that last second shot that gets you over the hump. That's the energy that's provided with synergy, by everyone believing, everyone going in that one direction. You know, that's what championship teams and I don't even really like to say teams because teams are from year to year. I like championship programs.
Like
Mhm. Yeah.
That you know, where alumni from 10 years from now is still a part of that program.
hmm
Yeah.
I
You made
agree.
me think about the
That's
movie
real talk.
Glory Road.
Yeah.
As you were describing that, and remember, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, it's a must see. It's based on a true
Yeah, I
story.
have. Yeah.
Jared and Ronnie, have you seen Glory Road?
Multiple
My
times.
top 3 favorite sports movie.
You're right. And it's like, you know, everybody clowned him. Why? Because he was a girls' basketball coach and he's coming in and coaching these young men, and the program didn't have any money and they didn't, you know, the black players and all of this. And this powerful, powerful story about, in my opinion, this shift in mindset. It was a shift. He shifted that program by shifting the attitudes and the belief systems around the love of the game, the importance of a disciplined mind. And when we look historically, he changed the culture, not just of the program, but of the community and of the nation, because he understood that winning and being a stellar scholar athlete starts here. It
And
starts,
and they had to buy into a white coach too.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's a credit to his ability to coach and lead people.
Yeah.
And I did have a question for Ms. Carter while she's on here, being a coach and former coach.
Mhm.
When it comes to signing day, you don't see a lot of guys or females signing to some of the HBCUs. It's kind of like on the back burner. Oh, I didn't get this offer. I didn't sign. Let me just sign this HBCU. As a coach, and I know you see what's going on now. More athletes are going to HBCUs, but how do you like advertise or promote the HBCU up against, you know, some of them bigger D1 white schools when it comes to signing day? Like everybody wants to position. Like, what is it like from a coach's standpoint?
From
Nice.
HBCU versus that's the you mean signing day or just recruiting?
Signing day and recruiting, and then not only convincing the player, because some of the parents I know you've seen, they get mad when their children don't go to school that they want them to go to. So
Well,
like,
that's true, but I mean, we spoke about this at the beginning of this segment, beginning of the program, about the fact that HBCUs, the academic reputation isn't strong, right? So, first of all, you have to jump over that hurdle.
mm,
Second of all, you have to jump over the hurdle of facilities.
mm,
Third of all, I mean, I coached at Division II level at Savannah State, so a full scholarship. What did a full scholarship mean? I mean, a full scholarship meant book money, financial aid, and then oh yeah, I'll fill in with basketball money. That's you can't recruit. I mean, you can't build with that.
mm,
Second of all, what's the infrastructure? What's the infrastructure? Do you have alumni supporting the program?
mm,
So there are real hurdles.
yeah,
I mean, that there are real fundamental hurdles when you're discussing HBCUs, even at Division I level, and historical, University of Maine or mid major schools.
mm,
So, you know, I don't blame the student athlete for wanting the best,
mm,
right? Wanting the best or what's perceived to be the best.
mm,
There's nothing wrong with it. You know, who doesn't want to have great facilities? Who
mm,
doesn't
right,
want who doesn't want to be um uh tutored by a coach that's going to drive them and force them to be their best? Who doesn't want to play in front of a full house,
mm,
cheering stands
right,
and on TV? So I don't know, that's for the HBCUs to work it out and to provide that structure and the money for that coach, because I think, I take Savannah State. I'm not picking on Savannah State, but prior to Savannah State in Georgia was the only school really in South Georgia. Southern, Ert Russell, when he built the football program at was that Southern Georgia,
Mhm.
South Georgia? I forgot the name of the daggone school. I
Now,
can't think of
Dawson
the right.
State down there too.
Yes, Valdosta was also strong, but
Mhm.
Russell went to Southern Georgia. Yeah, it was Southern Georgia,
Mhm.
and he
Yeah.
built that program up, right? So now Southern Georgia, Savannah State can't compete at
Mhm.
all with
Mhm.
those schools, for the Black athlete. And there's a lot of quality Black athletes, um, Southern Georgia and in Florida.
Mhm.
So that was prime recruiting land. But
Right.
you have to build, you have to constantly build the university. You cannot stay at one spot. When HBCUs were developed, we could not go anyplace else,
Mhm.
right? So why keep the mission the same? You
Right.
still want you still want to offer great academics. You still want it.
Mhm.
And I think to that point, like we talk about on the show a lot, is the alumni support. And in previous shows, when we were shouting out different HBCUs across the country, and we would read some of the alumni that graduated from these schools, anytime we got maybe 3-4 names in, and all 3-4 names we knew, we were like, well, why is this school struggling? Or this school should never struggle. They have too many alumni who have too many resources to benefit them. And I think that's one of the bigger issues is the alumni support. And part of that is because I think alumni feel like, well, why am I going to donate my hard-earned money to a program that might not be successful? They might not win. And I think we see a lot of people, first generation people from HBCUs who get money, and we talk about, well, I got it, it's on them to figure it out. I think, it's a lot of combating, mindsets, whereas, we should give back to our HBCUs because they gave to us. They gave us opportunities. So we should give back for the future generations. But you have a lot of competing mindsets with that, where it's like, well, I don't really have a lot of money to begin with, so I can't just donate all my money to the, to the alumni funds and stuff like that. And then it's like when the money is donated to the schools, making sure the administration is held accountable to make sure that money is allocated to the right departments and right programs. So if your football program's generating a lot of money, but that money is being spread out amongst the school because the school's trying to save face and keep the school open, well, that's a disservice to the football team because the football team is generating that money. You need to be able to give back to them so they can continue to create money for the schools.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's we could continue these conversations, goodness gracious, forever. And it, even with all the technical difficulties that were, in the grand scheme of things, short-lived, time went by so fast. What a powerful discussion. It goes back to, as we're wrapping up these last 3 minutes. I think about what we were talking about, Ronnie and Jared, over text this week, about the article that came out from Deion Sanders talking about Jackson State didn't have any money, and that the program is hemorrhaging, right? They don't have the financial resources that are needed. And we talk about the basketball program or the football program, but can we go one step above that and say the athletic programs? And can we have discussions about what are these ADs doing to make sure that their programs are getting the appropriate resources that they need? What type of campaigns are in place to make sure these things happen? Who is being held accountable as we go up the hierarchy within these HBCUs? And then what we've talked about on previous shows too is that we know when it comes to the dominant culture, how their money moves, right? And the reality of it is that on one hand, we clearly understand the disparities that exist in HBCUs and why so many Black and brown athletes opt to go to a PWI. But the flip side of that is, and I've said on a number of shows, Ms. Carla, that we've got more power than we realize. We are not properly using the power that we have as Black and brown scholar athletes. And I really truly believe that if people truly recognized the power that they have, they would use it differently, because I believe that we as a people have the ability to shift. We have the ability to create this shift culturally and athletically that can funnel money to HBCUs that is needed to get these athletic programs, the overarching umbrella of all of the athletic programs, to bring them up to par. But because people don't recognize the power that they're yielding, it's old school, right? It goes back, I make a lot of references to the residual effects of slavery. And I talk about, I've made mention of the Willie Lynch letter, and whether somebody believes that it was, a farce or not, at the end of the day, there are still a number of ideologies that were referenced in that letter that we see existing among our people today. And one of the first ones that come to mind is keeping the body strong and the mind weak. Whereas we're saying keep the mind strong and the body strong, and being able to recognize. I've often said that one of the dominant culture's greatest fears is an educated Black and brown person. If they can keep you stuck on stupid, then there's a way to manipulate you. There's a way to dominate you. There's a way to keep one's foot on your neck, or to give you just enough to make you think that you've arrived or that you've accomplished something. Whereas when you understand the value, to your point, Ms. Carla, whether you go to college or not, that's for each person to decide what's best for them. But to understand that knowledge, as cliche as it is, knowledge truly is power. And you have to educate yourself in order to liberate yourself. And if you're not willing to educate yourself and to really expand your knowledge base and your network, then in essence, you're saying that you're okay being bound. You're saying that you're okay living this limited and mediocre existence to a degree, because you are held captive to your own limitations. So on that, folks, wow, we are out of time. Ms. Carla, thank you so very much for joining us today.
I've had a fun time.
Awesome. We hope that you will join us again. I have sent you the schedule for shows leading all the way up to the end of spring. So hopefully you will join us again, and we'll be able to get these technical. I tell you, we haven't had technical difficulties in weeks. Like, I don't know.
It's been a while.
But you know what? The show must go on, and we don't let the hiccups and the bumps and the barriers stop us. We're going to get these conversations out there, and we're going to make sure that our audience has this information. I'm going to actually convert this file to audio, and I'm going to upload it to Blog Talk. So even though people weren't able to call in and ask questions, they'll still be able to hear the show and to hear all of the expertise and such profound wisdom that you added to the discussion today. So folks, until next week, this is House Talk Pregame. I am your host, sports mental health and empowerment coach, Dr. Lauren Pitts. Ronnie Ransom, Jared Johnson, Carla Debrell, thank you so very much for joining us today. Until next week's folks, that's it for pregame. Have a great
All right.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.